Pacific Signature Series is brought to you by Cathay Pacific, moving you to more than 90 destinations worldwide. In July 1405, ancient records tell of a Chinese emperor who orders an armada of 300 ships and 30,000 men to set sail for the western seas. In charge is one of the greatest seafarers of all time, Admiral Zheng He. At the heart of his fleet are huge treasure ships, almost double the size of any other ship of the time. These ships are laden with gifts for the rulers of the many lands he visits. Spanning 3 decades, Zheng He will lead 7 vast expeditions to kingdoms as far as India, the Middle East, and Africa, covering 25,000 miles of ocean. But within years of his death, it is believed Chinese officials destroyed all records of the treasure ship voyages, and China turned its back on the world. Now, 6 centuries later, the truth about Zheng He's story is being pieced together from a few scraps of evidence that remain. Who was this extraordinary man who led an armada halfway round the world 8 decades before Columbus set sail for America? And what was the true purpose behind his voyages? Our story begins in Yunnan, where Zheng He was born in 1371. Separated from China by rugged mountains, it was a remote outpost of the vast Mongol Empire, which Genghis Khan had forged from Europe across the roof of Asia to the Pacific Ocean. Zheng He's family most likely migrated across the continent as the empire expanded, and just like some people in Yunnan today, he was a Muslim. He would have been proud that his father and grandfather both had the title Hajj, in honor of making the long pilgrimage to Mecca.
Zheng He就很喜欢听他的祖父和他的父亲讲，坐大船啊，看看各个国家的风土人情啊，看看各个国家的这些珍禽异兽啊，所以就打开了他的眼界。
There are many anecdotes about Zheng He, but only scraps of documentary evidence remain. Amateur historian Mr. Xu Kede has been studying Zheng He for 40 years. The starting point for his research is a memorial inscription commissioned by Zheng He for his father's tomb.
这块碑啊，是在600多年前就在这个地方被一些杂草遮盖起来。这一块墨是郑和在出使西安前，为他父亲写了一块墨字铭。从碑上可以了解到郑和，他的祖父当过云南省的省长，他的父亲是丁养侯，所以是很有钱人的家庭。
嘿，等会儿！
他的小时候是非常幸福的。
But that happy childhood is suddenly cut short. Out of nowhere, troops suddenly swarm into his village, massacring everyone in their path. father is killed in the mayhem. The invaders were part of an army of 250,000 Chinese troops that tore into Yunnan in 1381. The Ming Emperor was determined to oust the local Mongol warlords and make Yunnan part of China. His elder brother escaped, but Zheng He was not so lucky. Appalling though his situation was, Zheng He's capture was to create opportunities he would otherwise never have had. But in keeping with the brutality of the age, he would have to pay for them at a terrible personal cost.
Macau 18th Macau International Fireworks Display Contest. Macau is celebrating World Heritage Year and you're invited for the most spectacular event of the season, featuring performances from 10 world-class teams every Saturday from 2nd of September to the 1st of October. Macau, a world of difference. The difference is Macau.
A 15-year-old Nepalese boy meditates without food or water for 10 months. Buddha reincarnate or hopes? The boy with divine powers. Premiering next on Discovery Channel. As much as information technology is changing our lives, it's transforming the world's most infamous terror network. The new Al-Qaeda starts Monday 11th September on Discovery Channel. This September on Discovery Channel. The power of faith or an elaborate hoax? Boy with divine powers. Winds of change threaten believers in Bhutan. Born-again Buddhists. Terrorism finds a new weapon in technology. The new Al-Qaeda. Bruce Parry goes back to basics and becomes one with the tribe. September on Discovery Channel. In 1381, the 10-year-old prisoner, Zheng He, is taken to the Ming capital of Nanjing. According to ancient custom, the sons of defeated enemies were castrated by their victors, and Zheng He suffers the ultimate humiliation. The task was performed with little concern for the consequences. The innocent scrotum severed in one cut. A plug was then inserted in the urethra to prevent scar tissue from closing. Some were no more than 9 years old. But tradition mandated that the emperor be the only man in the palace. So there was a need for a steady supply of young eunuch servants. This is the life Zheng He seemed destined for. But his fate changes yet again. By By 1390, as a teenager, he is in Beijing and a member of the household of Prince Judi. Mr. Xu has spent years gathering images and folklore about Zheng He, which offers particular insight into his legendary hero.
他在宫廷里边有长了才智，第一，他陪着皇帝的儿子读书，这个时候长了很多知识。第二，他有拜这个一个叫做过师的一个和尚，姚管孝。第三个，他跟朱棣在一起，每天要见着很多大官贵臣，他去了解了很多这个朝廷里边的一些处人哲学。
When Zheng He is 31, Judi seizes the throne and declares himself the Yongle Emperor, or Emperor of Perpetual Happiness. Outraged, government officials refuse to support him. Yongle promotes a number of palace eunuchs to positions of power. Zheng He is the rising star in this clique. And the emperor clearly has great confidence in his abilities. Zheng He had already been appointed director of palace servants and head of palace construction. But in 1405, the emperor summons Zheng He to the throne room and presents him with the most ambitious project he has yet conceived. Believes that as emperor, he is not only the semi-divine ruler of China, but also of the entire world. 10,000 nations overseas must benefit from his goodness and truth and pay him their respects. To achieve this, he will send a vast armada to the western oceans. And the man he wishes to fulfill this ambitious vision? None other than his trusted eunuch, Zheng He.
那么为什么要派郑和不派其他人呢？那么姚管孝就说了一句话，朱棣就问姚管孝，就说我们宫廷里边选哪一个人出去率领船队到下西洋呢？姚管孝说，朝中就是宫廷中无以伦比，就是郑和，除了郑和以外，没有哪一个可以比他，因此就派郑和。
奉天承运，皇帝出使西洋，赐尚方宝剑。
因为郑和有很多条件，他的身材魁伟高大，他有才学，他也懂伊斯兰文，他有信仰佛教，有时他有信仰道教，所以说就适应在各地方。
The imperial edict orders the construction of hundreds of warships and mighty treasure ships. At the age of just 34, Zheng He is set to command the most powerful fleet the world had ever seen. One that would take China to the most distant lands of the known world.
Over vast expanses of huge waves, we pass through the various countries with their different seasons, climates, landscapes, and peoples.
Ma Huan, a Muslim translator, chronicled the places and people Zheng He's fleet encountered.
In that land, there's a stretch of snow-white floating sands. When the sun or moon shines, it sparkles brilliantly like ripples on the water. All the craftsmen who make and inlay fine silver and gold and other such articles produce the most refined and ingenious things. The people of this country profess the Muslim faith there is frankincense, dragon's blood, myrrh, and even strange beasts.
But Ma Huan's accounts, curiously, say nothing about the size of the treasure ships, leaving the door wide open for endless debate by experts. Sources indicate that Zheng He's treasure ships were 138 meters long and 56 meters wide. That's far longer than Christopher Columbus's Santa Maria, and bigger than a football pitch. These megaships were said to be like floating cities. The Santa Maria had a crew of 90, but Zheng He's flagship is believed to have carried 1,000 people, as well as animals, provisions, even fish tanks, and huge quantities of precious items like porcelain and silks to trade. The dimensions of Zheng He's ships are first given in this book. 3 Jewels eunuch Zheng He travels to the Western Ocean. The problem is that it's a piece of fiction, a fantasy novel about Zheng He sailing to hell, written 160 years after he died. So how large were the treasure ships? The first clues came to light in 1957, when archaeologists excavated the former dry docks of the Ming Dragon shipyard in Nanjing. They unearthed huge beams that dated back to Zheng He's time. Dr. Hua Guorong explains that key evidence to confirm the size of Zheng He's ships is the remains of a giant rudder.
这个很多造船的一些先生们、一些专家，就根据我们这个舵杆的长度，它能够对当时明代郑和下西洋的宝船的多长，它能够做点推测。有专家认为，当时说根据这个舵杆的长度，它完全可能做出当时史料记载的长44丈、宽18丈这么大的一个。
Zhang Chi-kit is a naval architect who disagrees.
There are a lot of technical and operational constraints to operate such a large vessel.
He believes treasure ships this size would have been too big to control, and that wood simply isn't strong enough to build seagoing vessels that would have weighed more than 10,000 tons. Support for this argument may be found in this Buddhist prayer sheet. It's the only contemporary image of Zheng He's ships. With only 4 masts instead of 9, the ships seem to be a more conventional size.
We figured out that the vessel is probably about 60 or 62 meters long.
From 1405 onward, more than 1,000 vessels were built or refitted for imperial missions. Nanjing's Dragon shipyard, the biggest in the country, is turned into a production line. But the use of dry docks, 400 years before they were first used in the West, was the key to an astonishing rate of production. It was said half the trees in southern China were consumed in the process.
What are the ingredients that go into making a great movie? A catchy score, a spectacular location, a chase sequence, glamour, something to shoot it with, and a leading man. All the well
crowds a stage, and all the men and women merely players.
Tell your stories in DVD-like quality with the power of N-Series on the Nokia N93. The next story in video.
Here's your chance to win an exclusive Philips saver. Log on to the website below for details. A 15-year-old Nepalese boy meditates without food or water for 10 months. Buddha reincarnate or hoax? The boy with divine powers. Premiering next on Discovery Channel. First time, Israel's secret agents speak up about their mission of revenge. Munich, The Real Assassins, premieres Tuesday, 5th September on Discovery Channel. See a world shrouded in secrecy and mystery through the eyes of a 15-year-old geisha girl. Premieres Sunday, 10th September on Discovery Channel. Winter of 1405, as soon as the northeast monsoon starts blowing, Zheng He's armada finally sets sail for the Indian Ocean. Until that moment, the 34-year-old Zheng He had probably never even been to sea. Though these weren't voyages of discovery, Zheng He's first mission was very ambitious. To make his way down to Java, up through the Straits of Malacca, past Sumatra, and then on to the destination the Emperor chose. The Kingdom of Calicut, on India's Malabar coast. The reason he'd come halfway round the world was the reason that Calicut was world famous. Pepper. Pepper would have fascinated the Yonglai Emperor, not just for its zest as a spice, but as a remedy for stomach and heart problems. In China, it was so rare, it was sometimes used in place of money.
This was the largest single item that we find on the records. Vast amounts were brought in. And this is something that the Chinese had not had before.
But Zheng He had come prepared to trade, his holds filled with precious silks, and in particular, Ming Dynasty porcelain, which was valued across the region for its strength and beauty. Zheng He spends the first 3 months of 1407 trading on the emperor's behalf. His skill as a negotiator is tested as he barters for precious stones, pearls, coral, and tons of pepper. Ma Huan describes how deals were struck.
The chief and the chetty, with His Excellency the eunuch, all join hands together, and the broker then says, "In such and such a moon, on such and such a day, we have all joined hands, and sealed our agreement with a handshake. Whether the price be dear or cheap, we will never repudiate it or change it."
By late spring, monsoon winds start blowing from the southwest, so the fleet heads back to China, laden with its priceless cargo. But trade was only part of the reason for Zheng He's voyages. with up to 300 ships. His missions most likely had an ulterior motive, a uniquely Chinese agenda that would be inconceivable to Western thinkers at the time. To understand this better, we would need to understand the mind of the man who ordered the missions, Emperor Yongle. Yongle was one of the most visionary and ruthless of all Chinese emperors. In 1402, he usurps the throne from his nephew after a 3-year civil war and executes any civil servants who won't support him. Thousands die. Yongle has two burning ambitions: to restore Chinese culture after centuries of Mongol rule, and to legitimize his claim to the throne. Moving China's capital from Nanjing to Beijing, he builds the largest palace in the world, the Forbidden City. He also fortifies and extends the Great Wall to prevent the Mongols invading from the north. In his endless search for praise and confirmation, the emperor began to look beyond China's borders.
He was particularly concerned to ensure that nobody would question his legitimacy. And one way of proving that was to have lots and lots of rulers from elsewhere come and acknowledge his heavenly position as son of heaven. And that was important to him.
In the Confucian universe, the world was neatly ordered in a social hierarchy, with the emperor at the very top. His job, to maintain harmony between heaven and earth. If foreign rulers could be persuaded to offer tribute, the emperor believed the gods would indeed smile on him, and his dynasty would last forever. Zheng He's mission, therefore, was to bring the world to its knees.
He was not sent to go and look for new places. What he was looking for were any rulers who could be persuaded to acknowledge Emperor Yongle.
Exacting tribute was an art in itself, and Zheng He was a true master of diplomacy. Much like power broking today, rulers were wined and dined, seduced by demonstrations of China's finest. Local rulers were expected to offer tribute. In return, China would agree to trade, an ancient most favored nation treaty of sorts. Envoys were invited to board the ship for the long journey to China, so they could offer these gifts in person to the emperor himself. The most extraordinary of these were rare animals never seen before in China. The creature that amazed the court the most was a present from the ruler of Malindi in present-day Kenya, one solemn giraffe.
Extraordinary how this giraffe was brought in these ships across the Indian Ocean. And the Mandarins are fascinated, and they had tried to find in their classical text some way of naming this animal which I've never seen before. They found classical terms, and they wrote poetry to it, they painted it, and they generally thought this was the most remarkable creature indeed.
But if a ruler did not like the idea of becoming China's vassal, there was always the threat of military force.
The first years of Yongle's reign were marked by violence. The invasion of Vietnam, of Dai Viet, the invasion of a number of Thai polities in what is today Yunnan province, and the sending of these huge maritime missions abroad. Anyone who looks at the actions which occurred during those voyages will see that they were certainly not intended to be peaceful or friendly.
military force proved that China would stop at nothing to protect its interests. By restricting trade with China to countries that offered tribute, the emperor sought to establish a state-run monopoly on international trade.
He did this by turning up with 25 to 30,000 armed men, a fleet of up to 200 plus ships, and suggested that the people might like to either demonstrate some sort of submission to the Ming or face the consequences.
Chinese court records for the 6th of July 1411 describe how Zheng He, provoked by rebel attacks on his ship, leads an army to the capital of Ceylon, where he captures its king for disrespecting the emperor.
They were heavily armed ships, bearing the best weapons of the age. They were intended to dominate. They were intended to institute a Pax Ming through the region, through the maritime realm.
But some historians believe there were good reasons for the fleet to be armed.
Yes, they were armed. The ships were armed. There were lots of soldiers and sailors on board, and they have to after defend the majesty of the emperor, so they could not allow these ships to be taken by pirates or to be seized by the local rulers, so they have to be pretty strongly guarded.
Zheng He's armada had become a formidable power on the sea, and the message spreads throughout the ports of call: pay tribute to China or be prepared to pay the cost.
Technology has made your morning easier. Why not your shave? The new Philips Smart Touch XL is designed to shave more with every touch, with 3 shaving rings in each shaving head. And because now it pivots to stay on your face and neck, even tricky hairs are cut. Make every stroke count.
Food or water for 10 months. Buddha reincarnate or hoax? The boy with divine powers. Premiering next on Discovery Channel.
New to view this September. 2 of the finest shakers create the perfect cultural concoctions. Cocktail Kings. Cars, planes, villas. Live it up in the life of Europe's richest people. One weekend to indulge in the best life has to offer. Eat, drink, travel, live. New to view this September, only on Discovery Travel and Living.
As much as information technology is changing our lives, it's transforming the world's most infamous terror network. The new Al-Qaeda starts Monday 11th September on Discovery Channel. Headline grabbers this September on Discovery Channel. The power of faith or an elaborate hoax? Boy with divine powers. Winds of change threaten believers in Bhutan. Born-again Buddhists. Terrorism finds a new weapon in technology, the new Al-Qaeda. Bruce Parry goes back to basics and becomes one with the tribe. September on Discovery Channel. In pursuit of treasure and tribute, Zheng He's fleet enters the waters of the Arabian Sea for the first time in 1414. For half a millennia, Arab traders had been master navigators, plying these waters in simple one- or two-masted boats, known as dhows. These merchants began to dominate the trade routes between India, Arabia, and Africa, regularly sailing as far as China. A 9th century Arab observer reports, "Whoever wants to sail to China must cross 7 seas, each one with its own color and wind and fish and breeze, completely unlike the sea that lies beside it."
The routes were all set. They were known routes. In particular, the Indians, the Persians, and the Arabs have been at it for a long, long time. So you could send somebody like Zheng He, and he would find enough experts to actually enable these expeditions to travel safely, to get to the destinations they want to, and so on.
To find those experts, he would visit the city of Quanzhou on the southeast coast of China, once one of the busiest ports in the world, and home to as many as 40,000 Muslims. Dr. Wang Lian Mao is an expert on the city's maritime history. He's uncovered clues that suggest Zheng He did indeed recruit navigators in these parts.
这诗人啊，他写了一首诗，非常形象。里头有2句话，他说啊，就是船头吃脚半环上，大波高墙多海堡。他环胜一时，被认为是相当于现在中国的上海。对岸还有白旗，郑和下西洋从这边雇请了不少的老带，就是船老大，就是甲斗的那个最重要的水手。
Village Chief Guo lives in Bachi, a Muslim village a few kilometers up the road from Quanzhou. He says his ancestors sailed with Zheng He.
我们是来自阿拉伯的，我们知道是从海上西楚记录里来到泉州做生意。因为阿拉伯人有2个特点，一个是航海，一个是这个经商。
These were 2 qualities Zheng He would need if his voyages were to be a success.
但是要说无经济，也略小些少有经济。从老前辈说，那地方下西洋正经来一大关2班进去。
The story goes that over a game of chess, Zheng He proposes to the Arab navigators that they join him in his voyage to the edges of the known world. At first, they're not convinced. But he offers good pay and help with local problems.
那当时传说是说地下的军队，因为那个海底下原本是迄为海造船的，所以地下来到迄个所在，伊带起来军队要下西洋来协助帮助阮三角洲迄船。
With his Arab navigators at the helm, Zheng He's armada catches the northwest monsoon winds that start blowing each January. At the time, the Arabs were considered the greatest long-distance navigators, and Zheng He relied on many of their innovations. It is thought, for example, that although the Chinese invented the magnetic compass, it was the Arabs who refined its use at sea. Zheng He pooled the knowledge of Chinese Arab navigators to create nautical charts, some of which have survived thanks to this copy made in the 17th century. These made it possible to steer along the coast from China all the way to Africa.
Somebody did their homework. These fleets knew exactly where they were going and why. All you have to do is look at a map and see that the destinations of the main fleets was all the strategic ports in the Indian Ocean trading network. This is information that could only have come from very experienced traders. And the experienced traders of this day were Muslim.
In 1419, the fleet reaches Yemen, landing at Aden, the most westerly port in the Indian Ocean. Commanding the entrance to the Red Sea and the caravan routes to the north. It was the hub between Europe, Egypt, Arabia, and the Orient. One of its attractions for the Chinese was a resin extracted from trees in the Yemeni desert. Incense. Not only was it thought to cure many ailments, its fragrance was believed to imbue people with a sense of joy, making its price even higher than gold. The ruler of Yemen gave Zheng He gifts for the emperor, including 2 gold belts embedded with jewels. But Yemeni chroniclers were puzzled by China's attitudes and assumptions.
They clearly thought that the Emperor of China's apparent desire to dominate this by sending such huge fleets was simply ridiculous.
But such mutual misperceptions did nothing to stop the flow of trade. And leaving Yemen, the treasure fleet follows the Arab trading route south down the African coast. There's been much speculation that Zheng He discovered America, but there is no reliable evidence to prove this. And chronicles written during the voyages name this as the most distant point he reached. Malindi, in present-day Kenya. Today, it's a tourist destination, but Malindi was once a wealthy city-state, settled by Arab merchants who dominated trade between Africa and the Indian Ocean.
What they were really interested in was the gold of Africa, which came from the interior. And this gold was the thing that actually fueled the entire system, because African gold was used to pay for the luxury goods like pepper and so forth.
Africa was China's El Dorado, a land of inexhaustible mysteries and treasure. Here, at the ruins of a medieval city called Gede, just 15 kilometers south of Malindi, a structure surrounded by dense jungle takes us back to the Africa of Zheng He's time. Mr. Abdallah Ali Al-Losi, the curator of the site, says porcelain pieces, once part of this 600-year-old mosque, may be evidence of a Chinese visit.
In the 15th century, this town, it was flourishing like a young rose flower. And it was then Cheng Ho visited this part of the world. Some of the items which were fitted here in the porcelain balls could have been brought by him. Since he was a Muslim, he thought of bringing some presents to the Muslims wherever he would land.
After 6 centuries, not much evidence remains of either Malindi's glories or a visit from Zheng He's fleet. remote island called Partey, there are rumors of a shipwreck long ago and strangely Chinese traditions. Baraka Badishi belongs to one of a handful of clans here that claim Chinese lineage. The story goes that when the shipwrecked sailors from Zheng He's fleet made it ashore, they married local women. Scientists in China have tested her DNA and believe that her family is indeed descended from the Chinese. On its own, this can't prove a connection with the voyagers, but her story is given extra resonance by a precious heirloom, a small porcelain bowl.
Ye mwenyewe amekifahamu, umefahamu ni ndogo. Akala kusikia tuambiwa kwamba hawa asili yao watokana na Wachina, watoka Washanga, asili yao ni Washanga, na asili hao Washanga ni kwamba ni hao Wachina, ambao asili yao ni Washanga.
If Baraka's ancestors were indeed members of Zheng He's crew, it would add to the evidence that out here, on the east coast of Africa, the fleet had indeed reached the very limits of their known world. That the epic voyages of Zheng He were a success, the culmination of Yongl'e's ambitious vision. But back in China, criticism of the voyages was growing. It's been estimated that the fleets cost the imperial treasury more than $6 billion in today's terms. A phenomenally expensive way of supporting the emperor's sense of destiny.
What was the point of these missions overseas? Yes, it was to establish the legitimacy of Yongle, but he'd already established his legitimacy sort of 5 years into his reign. Were they still needed?
After so much time at sea, Zheng He was so out of touch, he had no idea how much things had changed back home. Some find success through endurance, strength, and determination. Others through their ideas and influence. But just what pushes these unique individuals to aim higher, faster, and further? Life Unlimited. Tomorrow night on Discovery Channel. Enduring Success with Philips long battery life phones.
A 15-year-old Nepalese boy meditates without food or water for 10 months. Buddha reincarnate or hoax? The boy with divine powers. Premiering next on Discovery Channel. A story that has lived in the shadows for more than 3 decades. For the first time, Israel's secret agents speak up about their mission of revenge. Munich, The Real Assassins, premieres Tuesday, 5th September on Discovery Channel. See a world shrouded in secrecy and mystery through the eyes of a 15-year-old geisha girl. Premieres Sunday, 10th September on Discovery Channel.
On the night of May 9th, 1421, lightning strikes the Forbidden City. Months after its completion. For Emperor Yongle, it may have been a sign that the gods were angry. Within 3 years, he is dead, his son inheriting the throne. Zheng He finds himself sidelined. The new emperor has little interest in his father's grandiose schemes, and China turns its back on the sea. It is believed that mandarins destroyed his logbooks and papers, determined that China would never repeat such a ruinously expensive policy. By the end of the century, building ships with more than 2 masts is banned upon pain of death. And the government orders the destruction of all ocean-going vessels. China's days as a maritime superpower were over.
How can you dominate an ocean the size of the Indian Ocean? The only people that ever succeeded in doing this came very shortly later, and these were the Portuguese.
65 years after Zheng He's last fleet returns home, Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama enters the waters of the Indian Ocean, ushering in a new era of European domination.
If it's maintained a fleet, they certainly would have given the Portuguese a run for their money. There's no doubt about it.
Today, 6 centuries later, China is rediscovering Zheng He. In Nanjing, across the river from the site his treasure ships were built, a group of shipwrights have found their own way to mark the anniversary of Zheng He's first voyage.
我们是根据为什么根据纪念600周年这个活动来想，我想到了他这个是7次下西洋历时28年。我说我们搞了个2米半长，宽度我1米07，就应该7次下西洋，就这个样，就这么一个情况。他是中国的伟大航海家，应该叫他也是我们世界这个人民的一个啊。所以我作为我们所炎黄子孙，我就感到就是中国人，为中国人很自豪。
Zheng He now represents China's new determination to engage with the modern world.
Now, Zheng He is a symbol and quite different. In a way, it has nothing to do with Zheng He anymore. It is a very useful way of all the possibilities and potentials that Chinese people are now interested in developing.
In Zheng He's birthplace in Yunnan, a compass has been set in the grounds of his father's tomb, a place for Shu Ke-de to contemplate the man whose story still grips his imagination.
他把他的一生、全部精力和心血贡献了给了我们祖国和世界的航海事业，所以他是一个伟大的航海家、外交家和和平的使者。
Yet, despite all the debates about his voyages, we have no documents that tell us anything about Zheng He the man. And he left no record of the extraordinary personal odyssey that fate had sent him on. The closest we can get to Zheng He's feelings is the inscription he left in a temple before setting off on his final voyage. His own brief account of almost 30 years at sea.
We have traversed more than 100,000 li of immense water spaces, and have beheld in the ocean huge waves like mountains rising sky high. We have gone to more than 30 countries, large and small, and we have set eyes on barbarian regions far away, hidden in a blue transparency of light vapors seas, while our sails, loftily unfurled like clouds, day and night, continued their course, rapid like that of a star, traversing those savage waves as if we were treading a public thoroughfare.
Up next, a 15-year-old Nepalese boy meditates without food or water for 10 months. Buddha reincarnate or hoax? The boy with divine powers. Next.